In the home of Mr. Wade Carrigan to talk to he and his son Doug Carrigan about their memories of Mooresville and something about the Carrigan Farm. It's famous in this area as a place for people to come. Strawberries, to pick strawberries. They have parties and things here. So let's start with Mr. Wade Carrigan and ask you, sir, if you could just begin with some of your earlier memories of what your life was like here in this area.
I was born down in Rowan County, just a little bit below Prospect Church, which I grew up in Prospect Church. And when I was born, I didn't know they made white boys till I started school, because the only people around me were black. We raised cotton, and that was our livelihood. And my daddy, this was his first farm that he rented after he got married. He and my mother lived together down there and had 3 children down in Rowan County. And I started school, we all started school in Landis, which was about 15 miles away, and we rode the school bus. We would have to walk out a quarter of a mile, half a mile to the road every morning to get on the school bus. And I thought it was the coldest time of the year that we would get on the school bus. And school buses were a 3-seater. There was a seat on each side and 2 seats down the middle, and it was one altogether. And in 1934, I think, or 5, we bought a farm, the first farm that my daddy bought, over on Teeter Road right now. What's Teeter Road right now? And we moved over there, and still were raising cotton. And I started going to Mooresville to school when we moved over there in the 3rd grade, 2nd grade, or 3rd grade. I'm not sure which one it was. And we lived over there till 1937. And my grandmother and 2 of my uncles were supposed to be farming this farm. And my daddy there were 6 in his family, and they were about to lose the farm. And the other 2, 3 told Daddy if he would come back and pay them $1,000 apiece and pay off the indebtedness on the farm, that he could have the farm. And so we moved over here in 37 or 38-1, and still growing cotton. And the war came along, and Daddy decided that he wanted to milk cows, and they were wanting people to grow food that would get people out of the country. Well, not out of the country, but feed the army then. And we started milking cows about in the middle of the war, I guess. We built a barn, grade A milk barn, and started milking Guernsey cattle. And we wound up with about 36 cows we milked twice a day, and sold milk to Mooresville Creamery to start with, and then they closed up and we sold to Rowan Dairy for the rest of the time till I finished high school in 47 and came back to the farm and got a deferment in the Korean conflict, and I was married then, and we still milked cows till 1966, and Daddy was 66 years old and wanted to retire, and I didn't feel like I wanted to do it by myself, so I left the farm and got a job with Borden Chemical in Statesville selling fertilizer and farm chemicals, and worked for them for 18 and a half years. And during that time I got involved in soil and water conservation, and they asked me to serve as a supervisor on our board, and I served on that for 30-some years and was the state president of the state association and represented North Carolina at the national level for 15 or 20 years, and met a lot of nice people in these United States. Phyllis and I got married in 1950 and lived upstairs at my mother's till 53. We built a house and moved down here in 53. And believe it or not, we built this house for just a little bit over $8,000 when in 52 and 53, and John Barger built a house, and we raised 3 children in this house, and Doug and Jan. Doug was a good teacher when he started the school. He started the school before Jan did, and when he came home from school before Jan went to sleep, she learned everything that he learned that day. And when Jan started the school, they left her in the 1st grade till about Thanksgiving, I think, and they put her in the 2nd grade. So Doug and Jan both graduated from high school at the same time, and Jan went to Meredith to school, and Doug was kindly, it wasn't that he wasn't smart, but if 70 was passing, there was no use making 72 till he was a senior in high school, and then he decided he wanted to go to college, so he went to Western Carolina the first year and made the dean's list up there and transferred to state and graduated with honors. And Jan graduated with honors from Meredith, and Tom, who was maybe the smartest of the 3 of them, I don't know, but he was the laziest of the 3, and he went to state and graduated finally after about 6 years, I think. But it wasn't because he worked for a little bit in between time, but he finally graduated from the state, and he is the only one. Jan got married when she finished college, and she's been on the road most of the time. She's lived in 5 or 6 different places in these United States, and she's been married. And Tom, we have 6 grandchildren. They all have 2 apiece. We got 5 boys and 1 girl. And Elizabeth, Doug's oldest child, is going to be the 3rd Elizabeth Carrigan that lived in the home place up here. And William is going to be the 2nd William Carrigan that lived in what? We talked a little bit about William living, going to be the 2nd William Carrigan that lives in the old house up here. My daddy was the only one who wasn't born of 6 children in this old house. He had a sister, Elizabeth Carrigan, and my mother was Elizabeth Carrigan when she got married, and they actually married brothers and sisters. My mother and daddy, mother married a Carrigan, and her brother married a Carrigan, or vice versa, I don't know. Anyhow, Uncle Lib, Aunt Lib, and Uncle Jim we were double first cousins if they'd had any children, but they didn't have any children. So, but anyhow, that's some of the history of the old house up here. And talking about the old house that my daddy and mother moved into in 1937, and I grew up in that house. The house was built in 53 or 54 or 1, and 18 in 53 or 54, before the Civil War. And I've been told that there was 22 men worked on that house, and that's a year's work for 22 men. They cut it out in the wintertime and put it together in the summertime. And every major place, every major piece is marked with Roman numerals. So in the 40s, we had a bad hailstorm, and it knocked all the window lights out of the old house up there. And Mr. Pam McCoy, who ran a shop behind Parkview School up there, told Daddy if he would take the windows out and bring them up there, he would putty them and put them back in. And we did. And I told Daddy, I said, we'll have to mark these windows when we take them out so that we'll know where to put them back. And got to looking, and they were all marked with Roman numerals, so it was easy to put them back into the same place that they came out of. And when we moved over here, my grandmother and her 2 children that were still at home, boys, were living here, and Mother and Daddy moved into the house, and the three of them, and I think my grandmother Linker moved in about that same time. So my mother had to be an angel to put up with all of that, the bunch that she was living with at that particular time. But and we had to build a house for Grandmother Carrigan and her two boys across the road over there, and we built it the next summer after we moved up here. But I think I was said we went to town. I think everybody about went to town on Saturday, and Uncle Jim, Mother's brother, worked for W.C. Johnson's Hardware in Mooresville, and they would always drop me off there, and it was a treat because they had an upstairs and had an elevator that would take you upstairs, and they had wagons up there that I could push around up there, and it was a treat to go to town on Saturday. And the next door neighbor down here was Mr. Hart, and he sat on the porch most of the time through the week, but on Saturday when everybody was going to town, he would catch his old mules out and hook them to riding cultivator, and he'd go cultivating cotton beside the field and not beside the road. And I knew that wasn't going to be long till my daddy couldn't stand that. He'd have to be working on Saturday too, and sure enough, it wasn't long till we quit going to town on Saturday, but we farmed on Saturday too. But we were still in cotton then. We didn't milk cows till 42, 43, somewhere along there. We started milking cows. And I'll let Doug start now.
Oh gosh, earliest recollections here. Born and raised right here in this house on the farm. Grew up here, played in the creeks, and grew up on a dairy farm. Had cows growing up, and you always had to take care of those, this and that, and so on stuff on the farm. It was milking. It was regular, twice a day, all the time. Rode the combines, and when we put wheat in sacks and roll the sacks off and have to carry them up, and just did all the chores on the farm. I remember driving a tractor before I could reach the pedals. They put me up there just to steer, picking up hay in the fields. So the farming roots, they run real deep in our family because every generation before us has been farmers, and just keep doing it. But as far as Mooresville's concerned, whenever I went to school, went to Parkview Elementary School, and the old school is torn down now, and then went to the old South School, which is where First Baptist Church is, or was, whatever, it's torn down now, and then went up to the old Mooresville High School, which my mom and daddy graduated from there, and I think my grandma, one time, went there too, didn't you? Linker, yeah. So but that was the old Mooresville High, right where Mitchell Community College is, and they tore it down, and then went to Mooresville High School too. Finished it and graduated there, and it's still standing as of this date. So, but we've been in Mooresville forever, and just grew up in town. Did all the stuff that I guess the normal kids would do, except a lot of the kids played football and other stuff, and I ended up working on a farm because that's what we did, and did more of that than anything. Then graduated, went to college, graduated from NC State in horticulture, because I knew the dairy business. My dad got out of it in the 60s, and late 60s, I guess, right?
66.
Yeah, and I graduated from college in 75, and so there's an interim period there that we rented the farm out to a couple of neighbors, we in Jackson, for grain farming and other stuff, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do when I got out of college, and it was either go on to grad school and be a plant breeder, which I had a kind of a inkling to do, or come back and farm. And so I interviewed all my professors and asked them what they would do, because I would have been a professor like them if I'd have done that. And about 95% of them said they'd go in business for themselves. So, okay, what the heck? So, come home, asked me if I could rent a farm from them. So basically, I rented a farm. Senior year in college, I started grafting my own apple trees and grafted those, and then came home, planted the first orchard, and basically made a transformation from it was a cotton farm early on to a dairy farm to a fruit and vegetable farm, essentially, or a grain farm, and then to a fruit and vegetable farm. So that's kind of the evolution of the farm as far as its productive life, whatever. And so here right now we're growing apples, peaches, strawberries, pumpkins, asparagus, fruits and vegetables, and we also do a lot of special events with company picnics and family reunions at a rock quarry. But that's another avenue that I'll get to a little later. It's kind of the evolution of the farm. The farms that don't change tend to remain the same or stagnate, and so you know, well, we don't live in the past, but the past lives in us, and so we have to continually keep our past, but then have to grow and evolve as the community around us grows. Mooresville growing up, there was less than 10,000 people when I was growing up, and now there's probably 40,000 plus in the Mooresville area, and that's in my lifetime. And I dare say that it'll double again quick enough here. But as well, got all as the local folks say, all the Yankees are moving down here, but like they say, the Yankees are a whole lot easier to milk than cows. So you get $1 out of them a little bit easier, and so and they're easier to pick than cotton. So that's kind of the mantra that we use, and we say it's our southern obligation to relieve them of their burden of money, and so we have to do that every chance we get. But my goal, and as being the businessman or the farmer or whatever, is to figure out a way to make a living off the farm with whatever crop or product or marketing ability that we can do to make a living and stay on the land and maintain the land. And so that's constantly changing right now, and we see more changes into the future, and so we're already setting up for the future too. But I think this is more about history than the past and then the future here, so I'll jump back into that. Growing up, like I said, worked on a farm, and I've had, since 75 I've been growing stuff, so that's 30-some years already in the fruit and vegetable business. There's a lot of folks that have enjoyed getting their strawberries. A lot of kids have come out and taken a hayride and picked their own pumpkins out here, and we've been doing it so long that the kids were bringing their kids back, and so we said, okay, we got to have something for the big kids. How can we get something up from the mom and dads for them to do? So we had a rock quarry on the farm, because in the late 60s they mined 500,000 tons of stone out of the farm to build Interstate 77, or parts of it, from, I would say, probably from somewhere around the Davidson area up to about Troutman area, because hauling stone just is it's freight. It's not really the stone. There's plenty of stone around, but there's been a stone farm or stone quarry on the farm since before the Civil War, because right on the other side of the ridge there, a lot of stones were taken out to build Davidson College. Some of the rocks there, and then they took some stones out to build the old macadamized road, which is in front of the house right out here, because that's still remnants of it. You can plow up the fields right where the Mooresville sign is. You'll find some granite pieces about this big around, and those are the old macadamized road, which is one of the earliest roads that they had along then. So stone was taken off the farm to do that, and they left a pretty good rock quarry down there. And right now we do company picnics, family reunions, weddings, special events, and have a good time down there. And so we're basically not selling produce, but we're selling memories. And so the memories are good, but sometimes folks come in and they used to buy 5 gallons of strawberries. Okay. Right now my dad's going to jump back in and tell us about picking cotton.
When I was growing up, that's what we had was cotton, and there were, I don't know how many Negroes that lived on the farm, but we usually had anywhere from 5 to 6 or 7, sometimes maybe as much as 10 acres of cotton. And a bale of cotton per acre was a fairly good cotton at that particular time. And Daddy would put a bale of cotton, which was about 1,200 pounds at that time, and go to the gin in Mooresville. There were 2 cotton gins in Mooresville. There was one beside the Mooresville flour mill, and there was one down on Broad Street. And Daddy always went down to the one on Broad Street, and I don't know why he went down there, but usually when you would go to take a bale of cotton to the gin, there might be 25 wagons in the front of you to get to Cotton Gin that particular day. And I guess it was every day, because every time that we would go, there would be about that many. But Daddy would let me go with him to the gin when he would gin cotton. And when Daddy and Mother, I think, started selling cream in they were probably selling it when they moved down there in the early 30s. And I think, looking back over my life, that Mother and Daddy made, all the money that they made at that particular time was about anywhere from $5 to $7 a month. And they lived off of that. The only thing that they bought was kerosene, rice, tea, sugar, and coffee. And that's the only thing that I remember them buying at that particular time. Daddy had a car, and we would, and I forgot what gas was in. It was probably less than a quarter a gallon at that particular time. But we would take the wagon. Usually we took a wagon to the flour mill and would take wheat and corn both to get flour and corn meal from the flour mill. They would toll it so much, and Daddy didn't have to pay anything for the flour that he got, or for the corn meal, either one. And this was I don't know how often we would go, but we always had corn and bread and hogs. Daddy would raise hogs and would milk the cows and separate the milk and sell the cream. Mellow Ranch would come by and pick up the cream and haul it to Mooresville Creamery, which is right where the old schoolhouse used to be. And he would...
the old Mooresville High.
He would come twice a week and pick up cream. We didn't have electricity at that particular time, and we had an ice box, a big ice box, and Mother would keep the cream in the ice box till Mr. Mel come, and he would come, and it seemed like it was I don't think it was any more than 3 gallons or maybe 5 gallons of cream at a time that he would pick up. But we raised our own chickens, and Mother would kill the chicken, and I couldn't wait in the spring of the year for one to get big enough so we'd have fried chicken on Sunday morning, or Sunday at lunchtime. And we had turkeys too, and before I started school, I had to follow the turkeys to find out where they were laying, because the dogs would get the eggs if you didn't bring them in, and when the hens started to set, well, Daddy would take the eggs and put them in the nest, but he'd have to know where the nest was. So he would get the eggs, and then he'd take them, and we would raise anywhere from 8 to 20 turkeys a year and sell them at Thanksgiving and Christmas time to the merchants in Mooresville. Usually we would dress them, and Daddy one time usually stuck them with a knife, and they bled to death. Well, he had one he didn't get stuck right, and they had almost all the feathers off of her, and he always tied them up with a string so he could pick the feathers off of them. And it got loose, and they had to run the turkey down with no feathers on, and that was I have told this many times about my Mother and Daddy undressing the turkey and then having to undress it again. So, but anyhow, that was one of the things that I remember. Another thing was that the first mare that my daddy bought was in about the 32, somewhere along there, and he bred her, and she had a mule colt, and he was so proud of that mule colt. And he had mules around there, and they got to fighting, trying to kill the colt, and Daddy got in between them and got kicked and broke his rib and punctured his lung. And but that was, and every year after that, he raised a mule colt. If he'd just left the mama alone, she would have got rid of the mules, but he didn't know that. So, then we raised mules and sold mules to the people in the mountains, and they would go from. We'd have to break them every year. We'd have to break mules and learn them to plow and to pull a wagon. But Mooresville, we'd go to W.C. Johnson's Hardware, and the Mooresville Creamery was down on Broad Street, right behind it. There were Uncle Bob, Mother's brother, worked for Miller's Meat Market, which was up there about where Shorty Atwell's, it was between Shorty Atwell's and one of those other stores there at that particular time, and I could go up there.
Bob's Grill now.
Yeah, Bob's Grill now. And the State Theater was across the road there, but I never got to go to the theater. It was too far away for me to get to the theater. But we had Charlie Mack's was on down the street there, and there was a feed store on the right, down about the third store below W.C. Johnson's there. The Voyles had a dentist. There was a dentist office upstairs above, I think that was a building loan, something on the corner there then. It's something to do with money anyway. And I would go to Dr. Voyles for if I had to have anything done for my teeth when I was in high school. And Belk's was across the road over there, and where the Civic Center is now, that was Belk's department store. And I can't remember too much more about what was in Mooresville because I just quit going when I was old enough to know just about. But I did finish school in Mooresville, and it was before they had a lunchroom in the high school. I started school there, and it carried my lunch. And if I forgot my lunch, if I had 10 cents, I could go up to Clyde Kiesler's grocery store, and he would give me enough cheese. I could buy 10 cents worth of cheese. He'd give me enough crackers to eat with it to get my lunch. So, but that was some of the times when I was in high school. So,
tell them why all your classmates like ice cream so much. When you have a class reunion, they always have to have ice cream. Tell them why.
If you had a nickel, you could always go to the ice cream plant and get a cone of ice cream. I didn't have a nickel all the time, but I graduated in 47, and that's been a tradition in our class reunion that we serve deluxe ice cream. That's our dessert for every reunion that we've had since I forgot when we had the first one, but we've always had served deluxe ice cream, and it has been everybody that went to Mooresville School at that particular time knew that the ice cream plant was there. So,
well, tell them why. It's right across the street.
Yeah.
You got on the bus right there, didn't you?
Yeah, they parked the buses behind the creamery and the ice cream plant, and we had to go across there to get on the buses.
That's why they always ate ice cream.
Yeah, if we had the money. If you'll cut that off.
One of the other memories all the time was what my dad just said. It was about growing wheat, whatever. I remember growing wheat right where I think it's the East Middle School right now. It's a new school they just built up here. Growing wheat right on those fields right there. Had a pull combine full of them, put the wheat in sacks. It would be 100-pound fertilizer sacks, slide it off the ground, drive a wagon around, pick the sacks up, put them on a wagon, take the tractor wagon and take it to town, to the flour mill to sell the wheat. Well, the flour mill's still in the same spot it was when I was growing up, but there'd be enough, when the wheat harvest is coming in, everybody's cutting all at once, and the trucks would be lined up all the way back up to right there at the old Catholic Church, which is now the Prickly Pear restaurant, which would be Park Avenue. So you'd have to get in line there. You get there at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of times they'd leave somebody with a truck. A lot of times I'd stay there with a truck and pull it on up, or the tractor and pull it on up in your place in line. it'd be 2, 3, 4, 5 hours before you could get unloaded. Then they'd go back home and start cutting wheat or whatever. So I remember riding up there on that, and that was kind of an adventure to go to town, because we didn't go to town that much. Even though we went to school, we just didn't go to town that much. Lived on the farm, whatever. But back to the community and the farm right here. The big white house up here that I'm restoring right now, it's the Hargrave house. Mr. John Hargrave built it in about 1853. His daddy, William Hargrave, bought this land prior to that and had a general store out here. And this was before Mooresville was ever Mooresville. And this was a community of Deep Well. And there's reference by a post office that was here, because most of the houses were built, they didn't have wells, they just got water from the creek. And so here, there's a well up there, and it's 37 feet deep, dug by hand, rock line. I've been down in the bottom of it and cleaned it out. And they went down until they hit bedrock, then they dug out about another 3 feet. The water would come through the soil, hit the bedrock, and fill up. And that was quite an undertaking to dig a well by hand. I imagine it was probably dug by slaves. Can't tell you for sure, but it still works, and it's cleaned out, and it'll work. You can actually use good clean water out of it if you want to. But that was the only way they would build a house up this far from the creek, because the closest creek's probably 400 yards away, and it would have been quite an undertaking to have to carry water 400 yards every day for your daily existence or whatever. So he built anyway, in 1852, Mr. William Hargrave died and left his son, John Hargrave, $29,000, which was a pile of money, and I'd say it'd be the equivalent of $2+ million then. He had a couple kids, and evidently he decided to build a nice big house up there, which he did. It's on the National Historic Register. It's a Greek Revival house. It's very simple. It's a T-shaped house, and at the time they had a kitchen built away from it, and this was one of the transitions where the dining room actually was joined up the house. A lot of times they did have a kitchen and dining room separate from the house, but here they moved it into the house there, and with a separate entrance on the side to the dining area, whatever. But my granddaddy and grandmother, or my great-granddaddy, William Carrigan bought the farm in 1902 and lived there. It's been in our family ever since. My grandmother lived there for all her years and died there in the house. Granddaddy too. And my job is to fix up the house right now.
She moved across the street.
Grandmother Elizabeth Carrigan didn't move across the street. With Cammy Carrigan, my grandmother.
Oh yeah, but I was talking about
great-grandmother. Great-grandmother. But anyway, I've been fixing up the house for the last year and a half, and I'm going to fix it up back into its 1850s splendor, I guess. And more or less, we're not just renovating it, we're restoring it to the way it was. And I've got a lot of antiques that I've accumulated, some family, some not, and I'm going to get off work every day and move back to 1850s. Sit on the back porch and sip on a mint julep. But,
so this is going to be a place where you're going to live?
Yeah, I'm going to live there.
Okay.
Got son and daughter, William and Elizabeth Carrigan, which they were originally in the house, and they're going to raise another William and Elizabeth Carrigan in the house right there. So they'll get to grow up there. But it's part of the farm. Hopefully we can stay here. As Miss Morris said earlier, by virtue of the number of people coming down, the land has appreciated in value. And if it'll grow corn, it'll grow condos too. But hopefully we can earn enough living off the land that we won't have to plant condos or anything like that. So hopefully we can find a way that folks will come in, stop by, leave a few dollars with us, and allow us to maintain a level of income that is on par with the rest of folks. And that's all we ask for. If we can do that, then we're happy and fine. We like our lifestyle. We like farming. Been in our family forever, and our whole family, the Carrigans came over from Ireland. The old Scots-Irish came over in the 1750s and been here ever since. And we haven't moved more than probably 15 miles from where we landed. Well, they landed in basically Pennsylvania. James and William Carrigan. One of them was buried at No, Collar Creek.
Yeah.
Collar Creek, which is the oldest ARP church in the country, I think. And so they're buried, one of them buried over there. And got a King's grant from the Earl of Granville, I think, that 4,000 acres of land, which is about 12 miles down the road here in Rowan County. And then we've all been here ever since and hadn't moved very far. Been in the Prospect Community Church forever. Augustus Leeser, the guy that founded Davidson College, lived in the house just right down the street right here for quite a while. So there's a lot of history in this part of the world. This was a major crossroad, and this was a very prominent community before Mooresville was ever a community. The thing that put Mooresville on the map was the rail. We got a railroad in there, and back at that time, Mr. Hargrave, I think, was one of the, in the 1850s, was one of the people that tried to get a railroad started, and there actually is part of an old railroad bed that they put right up to the backside of the farm over here, and it went out of business. It was basically, they were, I think somebody was selling shares in the railroad, did a little work, took a lot of money, left town. Didn't get the railroad put in, but there was the rail was a big part of interstate commerce back then, and like the interstates are today. I think, matter of fact, I just redoing the old house, and in all the walls we just put fiber optics, because that's the next interstate of the future, and we're going to be connected with the rest of the world. Just still live in 1850s, but be up to speed and keep up with what's going on in the future. So that's part of the evolution and change that will go on. As far as the farm here, we started out, like I said, as a cotton farm early on, then a dairy farm, and then grain farming, and then we've moved up to a little higher value crops of fruits and vegetables, and now I think we're into the entertainment farming or agritainment farming, where we're allowing folks that live on smaller parcel land to come out, enjoy the wide open space we got, play for a day, take photographs, leave a few dollars, and then you still got your place and you're happy, and they're happy, and we're selling memories instead of fruits and vegetables. But also, growing up, I kind of got started in the fruit and vegetable business because we'd have a cornfield out behind the house here to feed the cows and stuff, and we had a busy road out here. It wasn't busy as it is now, but I'd set a car table up, go pick corn, sell corn for $1 a dozen, and I started making a few dollars at it. So, man, it just moved on into the other stuff, and then we started growing strawberries, and we used to sell strawberries. A lot of folks would pick 5 gallons of strawberries, take them home, can them, and freeze them, whatever. Well, then they didn't. The housewives don't can and freeze anymore, so they just get enough to eat. And then some of them are too lazy to do that, so they want you to slice them and put them on the pound cake so they can just eat them right there ready to go. But my grandmother, Elizabeth Carrigan, she was in the first Tomato Club, which was the forerunner of the Home Demonstration Club, which they actually learned to can with cans and solder the tin on the top, and actually to preserve the fruit, which was the old Ag Extension Service, how to improve your life and live off the land a little more. And so we basically always lived off land. Daddy said that, and we can still do it. If the modern day housewife today had to kill and pluck and cut up her own chicken, chicken consumption would go down markedly, I think. And they would eat more grains and less chicken, I think. But due to modern agriculture, things have changed and afforded people to do other things in life other than farm, because I think there's only probably less than about 2% of the population is farming now, whereas in my dad's time there was probably 50% of the population. In my granddad's time it was probably 95% of the population was farming. So there's quite an evolution, and we're truly a minority by being a farmer. I don't think anything else in town. When we were growing up, I guess your high school memory days or some of your better ones, we had a car then. It was, the thing to do was drag Main. You go up and run from the Whataburger to the Tasty Freeze, which is in front of the food line on Main Street there, where Brawley Seed Company is there. and you'd go through one, and it was seen and be seen, and gas was cheap, and it didn't matter. You could drag me, and sometimes you stop and get a Whataburger or a Tasty Freeze or whatever, and that was it. There was no pizza parlor in town. We wanted pizza. We'd go to Village Inn in Statesville. That was the first pizza parlor around, and it was worth the drive up there. And you'd work all day. I remember one day we put up about 5,000 bales of straw. Me and my good friend Johnny Martin, high school, and worked all day long doing it. Come home, cleaned up, drove all the way up to Statesville, but we had an old 65 Impala Chevrolet, and made it to Statesville in about 14 minutes. So we were flying up the interstate there, zipped off, get a large pizza and a pitcher of beer and a piece, eat it all, and go on, keep going, get up next day and do it again. You know, so you work hard and play hard. But that was some of the fun stuff. As far as there was a movie theater on Main Street. It was right where the Citizen Center is right there, and that was the only theater in town. At the time there was one on down, which my mom will probably tell you about the other one, the two theaters, but yeah, well, there was only one when I was growing up, and they always showed a cartoon before the movie. I remember that, and you know, we were so poor we couldn't pay attention, so we had to pop our own popcorn and take it up there. We'd take a big old paper grocery bag full of popcorn in there instead of, because we couldn't afford to buy it, so we'd take the popcorn with us to the movie and sit and watch the movie. And that was fun on Saturdays, and I forget what it cost. It wasn't that much. I don't know, 50 cents or 75 cents. It wasn't too much. But Saturday movie, that was a treat when I was a little kid growing up. Had a library. We got to go to the library before it was renovated. That was fun. And the War Memorial, go swimming there. I took swimming lessons up there. Learned to swim there. See, what else do we do in Mooresville? Always, deluxe ice cream. Always love to go eat ice cream right there. And Main Street, the shops and stuff, they were just normal stuff. Never was a shopper, but that's just the guys. And, you know, went to Belk's there, and remember going to Belk's all the time remember when Cotton Ketch used to work at Belk's right there before he was a painter or whatever, but they're just good people, and hardware stores. Probably went there as much as anything because I had to go pick up stuff like that. But that's going out to eat. We never did go out to eat much. I don't think, hardly at all. Growing up like that, and just didn't do that. So that's about it. Just any other.
One thing I want, Doug, the children love to come out here with pumpkins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that people may want to remember. Can you sort of elaborate on your pumpkin? That's great.
I'll do that. I graduated from college in 1975 and came home and started farming, planted fruit trees and other stuff. And we're always looking for crops that we could sell, because we sell everything directly to the consumer farm. We don't wholesale anything. I watched my granddad take their wheat to the market, and if it cost them $3 a bushel to grow wheat, and the market was paying $2.75, that's what they got. So they took it, and it was produce all you can, take what you can get. All right, I said I don't like that, because the guy at the flour mill was always making the money. All right, the middleman had his fingers in the consumer's back pocket and had it in the farmer's back pocket too. So I said I want to eliminate that guy and get rid of him. So I decided right from the get-go, I'm going to produce what the market wants, not produce what I want. And we'll grow any crop that's legal, that is in demand. And we don't care what it is. We know how to grow. We can grow anything we want. And so early on, back when I was, in 4-H club, 14 years old, I got some pumpkin seeds of a Big Max variety and planted them up behind the barn up there, and grew a 120-pound pumpkin. And that was in, probably 64 or something. I can't remember, something like that. Took it to the county fair, won first prize. Blue ribbon and I think the prize money was 75 cents for first prize. Biggest pumpkin. Well, I had somebody that had never seen a pumpkin quite that big, and they wanted to buy it, so I sold the thing for $10. But what I didn't tell them was I didn't even bring the biggest one. I had a 150-pound one at home, and I sold it to somebody else. I think I only got $6 or $7 for it, but I did pretty well on the pumpkin crop. And then that was when I was in 4-H, and probably wasn't 12, 13 years old, something like that. And then got out of college and planted fruit trees and other stuff, came home, saw that pumpkins were an opportunity to do stuff, and just selling pumpkins is one thing, but the experience of picking your own pumpkin is another thing, and a hayride. So we started doing that and giving school tours to kids, because a lot of the kids were actually moving away from the farm and didn't know where their food came from. They thought the food came from Food Line, not from the farm. And so we give school tours, educational tours, teach kids that plants eat sunshine and drink water, that honeybees actually pollinate the fruits to make them, and so on and so forth. But a lot of kids come out, and we've done probably 10, 15, 20,000 kids a year. Every year is a little different, but we've done as many as 20,000 plus kids a year come to the farm, and most of them are kids that are within a 45-minute drive of here. They come from Charlotte, all over Statesville, whatever, because we're your token pumpkin farmer, and we produce them, and kids come out, pick them, and they have a good time. But we try to educate them as well as getting the pumpkin, and they keep coming back. It's almost like a rite of passage that you have to get your pumpkin at Carrigan Farms. I can have 15 Walmarts sitting on the corner selling pumpkins, and I'll still sell pumpkins, because I'm selling experience as well as pumpkin. And everybody knows they can get a pumpkin here. We try to grow most of them. Sometimes we can't, and we don't have enough, so we have to get them from other places, and we do. But if you come to the farm, you'll not be turned away for lack of wanting a pumpkin, I can tell you, because you can't have a kid that wants a pumpkin and be disappointed not get one. So we're always going to have a pumpkin for them. And strawberries has been another crop that's a good, very demand-oriented. Everybody likes strawberries. And come out and pick your own. It used to be we were 100% pick your own, and now as more women are working, we're probably about 50-50. 50% already picked, 50% pick your own. About 40-50% of the population is either too rich, too crippled, or too lazy to pick their own strawberries, so we pick them for them and sell them to them. And we sell them at the roadside stand, and that's fine too. It doesn't matter, that's just one of the changes of time. Asparagus is another crop that we've grown that Southerners traditionally didn't eat it, but we saw some demographic trends shifting that we've been growing asparagus 15 years, but as folks are coming from more northern spots that they can grow asparagus very well, we found some varieties that were bred at, matter of fact, at Rutgers University in New Jersey, planted those varieties, and we could actually produce some tonnage of asparagus down here, sell it, fresh asparagus, and that's good. Our goal is to provide a good, high-quality, fresh product at the farm that's better than what they can get in the grocery stores. They have other choices, but you can't get fresher than us. We're 3,000 miles fresher than California, and so you're just not going to get any fresher unless you go eat it off the vine, because it's picked that day and eaten that day, and it's good. There is a quality difference, and you can tell the difference. So our motto is our quality comes first. If we have the best quality, then folks will keep coming back. And price is secondary on your list, because you can get 5 hamburgers for $1 some places, but you'd rather have one good one for $3. So price is secondary on the list. Quality is up. Evolution of where we are and where we're going. I think that in the future, as population comes around us and grows around us, there's going to be more people living on less land, and so the folks that have the land, we have almost an obligation to share our land with them. We're like a private park that folks can come out, play for a day, be it in a pumpkin field, be it in a strawberry field, be it a rock quarry, be it walking in the woods, whatever, and hopefully we'll figure out a way that they can give us a few dollars for that privilege, and we'll be happy, and they'll be happy too. People don't have to buy our strawberries, but if they're better and the value's there, then they will buy them over California strawberries out of the grocery store. And so it's the same way with everything. We try to be demand driven, and if we're that way, then we will be here for the future, so that hopefully William Carrigan can sit here and do this interview for somebody else one of these years. But from the history of our family standpoint, I think there was a William Carrigan that actually fought in the Revolutionary War. I've had, numerous people that fought in the Civil War. Got some pictures of them. Got an old, matter of fact, I think it would be like almost a flugelhorn type deal that was played in the Civil War. Because one of my great-great-grandfathers, he fought the First Battle of Sharpsburg and was wounded, still wanted to serve, and he had one arm that wouldn't work well, so because he got wounded, and so he actually joined up into the band. Didn't have any musical experience, but figured out how to do it, and played in the band, and was in the band in the Civil War. And he fought under Wade Hampton, which was general in the Confederate Army, and he thought so much of him, came home and named one of his sons, Wade. And so that's how I'm Douglas Wade Carrigan. My dad is Wade Farr Carrigan. My son's William Wade Carrigan. So the Wade actually comes from Wade Hampton from the Civil War, and that's how that has come in. It's a family name, but it was an acquired family name at the start or after the Civil War. So that's enough at the moment.
Recording.
This is a picture of my mother when she was 16. Her name was Anna Jane Emma Leake, spelled L-E-A when she was born, but changed to L-E-E at some point. And she was Miss Iredell County, and she won a silver service, which my niece has now. This is a paper doll that belonged to my mother. Her daddy bought it for her when she was 7 years old, and she was born in 1895. And she was so proud of it that she made this dress to go on the paper doll. And when she was 11 years old, and her daddy had it framed for her, and I was the lucky person that got that.
Okay, and this is a picture of?
My Wade's mother and daddy's wedding invitation. I think they were married in 1923, I believe.
So it would have been
Or 20.
unusual to have a wedding invitation at that time.
It would have been unusual.
And then the picture above is the picture.
Is the picture of them when they were young, Bruce and Elizabeth Carrigan. She was Elizabeth Linker and Bruce Carrigan.
This is Phyllis Carrigan, Doug's mother, and we're so happy to have her memories on tape. So I guess we'd like to start as you were a young girl growing up in Mooresville, as you went to town and to school and so forth. So just please share with us your memories of growing up.
Well, I grew up on the Shearers Chapel Road, as it was known then. Now it's just Shearers Road. And we didn't have a car, so we walked everywhere. And I walked back and forth to South School, which was over a mile, in all kinds of weather. And as they like to say, uphill and down, uphill both ways. But anyhow, I had a lot of friends, and one of our favorite things to do was jump plank. You put a 2x4 down and put another plank across it, and then one person gets on each side of it and jumps. It's kind of like a seesaw, but you jump instead of sit. And that was a lot of fun, and we really liked to do that. But we lived inside the city limits, but we had a big barn. We had cows and chickens and pigs, and we had a big garden. We had 4 or 5 acres there. And we kind of lived like farmers, but we didn't do grain farming, but we grew about everything we needed. And when I walked to school, well, we would pass right by the library, and I remember when the library was built, we would watch it being built, and then as soon as we could, we went in and started getting books, and we thought that was a big treat. And the community house was not too far from there, and I went to the Girl Scouts there, and Miss McGehee was my leader. I remember that. but before I even started to school, though, I went to a kindergarten there where O.C. Stone Street's Cafe used to be. It was just right before, south of there, just a little bit. And they had a kindergarten class there, and I would walk there and with my brothers and sisters, and they would go on to school, and I would stop there and go to kindergarten. And Miss Branch McNeely was my teacher. And then when I started first grade, she started teaching first grade. So I had the same teacher at South School in first grade. And the same thing happened to me with Cora Free. She taught me in 6th grade, and when I went over to junior high, she went too and taught me in the 7th grade. So, and I remember Mama used to, since we didn't have a car, Mama would send me to town to pay her bills and to get whatever she needed. And I remember going into D.E. Turner's Hardware, and my chin would just barely hang over the counter, and it was a low counter. And they would ask me what I wanted, and I would tell them, and they would give it to me, and I would take it home to my mama. And Mr. Turner used to laugh about that a lot, me coming in there with my chin just barely hanging over the counter. And and one thing we did at Halloween too, we would go to town at Halloween. We didn't go trick-or-treating. We would go, and the stores would decorate their windows outside, or we would decorate them. Some people would. I don't know who did the decorating. I was a kid, but anyhow, we'd just walk up and down the street in our costumes and just had fun. And we didn't go trick-or-treating, and we would usually have a Halloween party at the school, and that was a lot of fun. And we've had Halloween parties at the community house too.
What did they do at the community house at these parties? Did you have bobbing for apples or games or anything?
Oh yeah, we did that. And we had a costume party and cakewalks, and I guess everybody knows what a cakewalk is, but if they don't, you just march around in a circle, and they have marks on the floor, and if you stop on the right place, when the music stops, if you're at the right place, you win a cake. And I remember my brother won a cake one time, and we thought that was the most wonderful thing. So, because we didn't get too many, well, my mama made cakes, but we had a big family, and, that was a special treat for us. And,
what were some of the things that you did at Christmas time?
Oh, at Christmas, now my family was a little bit different from others because my mother had a lot of family that lived around, and so we would try to see who could get up first on Christmas morning, and whoever woke up first would get up and go to the next house and wake them up, and then we'd go to the next house and wake them up, and we would be all over the place, waking everybody up in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve. And we just had a lot of fun doing that. And then wherever we ended up, we'd just all be together and just have a lot of fun. And but we tried to see who could get up first. And that was the big thing when I was a child. But I don't think a lot of other families did that. But that was one thing that we did that we thought was fun. So.
Well, now you have another son.
Oh yeah, we have 3 children. We have Doug, who's the oldest, and we have Jan, who was just 11 and a half months younger than Doug, and then we have Tom, who is 7 years younger. And they grew up here on the farm, and they still like to come home to the farm. And they have 2 children each. All 3 of them have 2 children each. We have 5 grandsons and 1 granddaughter. And we have our oldest grandson lives in Texas now, and he's getting his MBA at the University of Texas. And his brother, who is 2 years younger, is just been accepted to a school in Holland. He's going to get his master's in renewable energy. And then we have a 14-year-old and 11-year-old grandsons, and then we have a 6-year-old granddaughter and a 5-year-old grandson. So that completes our family. So, but I'm from a big family. My mother had 11 children, 9 grew up, and there's only 5 of us left now. But we had a lot of good memories growing up, and we still like to get together with our family. And and my dad died when I was 6 years old, so we had it kind of rough growing up, but she taught us good morals, and so we never have been in any really bad trouble. So she gave us things that money can't buy. So
I'd like to jump ahead a little bit, if I
Okay.
may, and because we heard from your husband and your son about life on the farm for them, what they did. But as a wife of a farmer, what was your life like here? Through the dairy farm, the wheat farming, and all
well,
that.
I didn't much like the dairy farm because he never got a day off, and we never got to do anything. As Doug said, we didn't go on many vacations because the cows had to be milked 7 days a week, and that didn't set too good with me. And I don't know. I mean, we just couldn't do much because
You got
cows are very
right,
demanding.
Right.
And but I, as I said before, where I grew up, we lived like we were on a farm because we grew everything, and we had cows and chickens and pigs and all that stuff, and my mama canned things and dried things, and so I've always frozen and canned just about all of our food. I still do, and I've got freezers full of food and jars full of food, and we just don't spend. I buy very little canned goods. I just make my own, and it's just better when you do it yourself than it is the process. And so, but I guess I've had a pretty good life here. So
Did the farm wives, when you were here on the farm here, did the farm wives get together in any kind of a social organization, or was it just?
well, they did have a home demonstration club, but I didn't go to it because I had small children at that time, and they maybe still have it, but I don't know. I'm just so involved in a lot of other things, and
Haven't you been involved in Girl Scouts at various times?
that was when I was a child. I have not since. Well, now Jan belonged to the Girl Scouts, and I did do that, and I was a den mother for the Cub Scouts, and I was involved in 4-H a lot with the children, and I've done a lot of taking them to their activities.
Some people may not know what 4-H is. Can you talk a
Oh,
little
that
bit
is
about
a farm club, and it's just you can do certain things and get rewards for it. They won their trips to camp and for doing things. And
What types of things did you do?
well, Doug did a marketing demonstration and on selling the watermelons. He did it on watermelons, and this lady that lives over in the Mazeppa area, she helped him make a ceramic watermelon to use in his demonstration, and he won in the state the marketing for watermelons, and then he won a trip to I think it was Chicago, but I'm not sure. But anyhow, he went and he won first place in the national contest for marketing. So you learn how to sell your produce, and then you learn they have sewing clubs and horseback riding, and they have all different kinds of things to do in 4-H, and public speaking, and that's where my boys learn to do their public speaking, and they're pretty good at it, and I'm not. So, but they had contests, and so it's really a good training club for the children. So.
Well, I know you have enjoyed your time on the farm and just having the freedom to enjoy without a lot of engrossed people around you. So, as time goes on, how do you perceive what's going to happen here?
Oh, I don't know. It's getting a lot of traffic here, when we built this house, there was no road there. We knew it was going to be there, but we just thought it was going to be a little. We didn't dream about it being as busy as it is. And so, I don't know, Doug is determined he's going to keep it in the family, and he doesn't want it to have houses all over it. He wants it to still be a farm, and so that's why we wanted him to. We hope he can realize his dream and pass it on to his children, but what they will do, I don't know. But I mean, it gets to a point where people just push you too much, and you might have to do something different. I don't know. When if the taxes get too out of hand or whatever, and you just can't afford to keep it, I don't know. But so far, we've got the farm use plan on the taxes,
So that's good.
so if you don't, then you can't afford to do that. So I'm hoping he can, because everybody needs to have a little open space.
That's right.
Sometime. So
And it's great the way that he's doing it with the children in mind, educating them as to what is a farm,
Yeah.
where does food,
Yeah.
produce, and so
Yeah.
forth come from.
yeah. So I'm hoping that he can keep doing that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Well,
This has
thank you
been
for
very
coming.
worthwhile.
This is a picture of the Carrigan Farm that he was talking about earlier. It's under reconstruction right now. Doug had mentioned earlier that the front of the house will be the last thing done, so we'll know that when the porch here is completed, that all the renovations to the house will be done also. Picture of the old barn. Adjacent to the house. Here's the vegetable stand. Parents' house. And now we're panning the farmland behind the houses. And back around to where the old barn is, and back to the main house. We're now down at the quarry.
We're now going to be recording on our way out of the Carrigan Farm. So we will be recording some of the crops that are grown on the farm. This is another lake on the farm where people can rent this area and come out and have picnics. Companies can rent it for the company picnics and so forth. This is another view of that same lake where companies come out and have picnics on. If I pan up, you can see where they raise some bees to make some honey.
This is one of the other irrigation lakes that they have. This is the upper one. You saw the lower one before. And there's some of the orchards located on the upper part. See, these trees have been around for quite a while.
Stop, Jim, back up. Back up.
I can't.
You've got to. Back up. Quietly, don't say anything.
It's flying off.
Did it fly off?
Yeah.
It was a peregrine falcon
Oh, was it?
sitting right there. Did you see it?
It flew off.
Oh, yeah, there it is. It's flying up there. See it sitting up there? Well, that other bird is flying. See it sitting up on top? Just left that
Yep.
telephone pole.
Yep.
Wow. It was sitting right there. Oh, darn. There you go. The fields we're looking at now will be strawberry fields, and these will probably be ready in a couple of months for picking. Public can come out and pick their own strawberries, or they also have them picked so you can just come out and purchase a basket of strawberries, fresh strawberries. This concludes our tour of the Carrigan Farm, and we hope that you've enjoyed the time we spent with them.